Hi everyone, and welcome to the webinar for Enhance the Customer Service Experience. Today we're going to be going through assessments 1, 2 and 3. And this is going to be the fifth unit in your Diploma of Events. So what's today's purpose? Today, as per usual, I've got my little unit breakdown that you've probably got as well if you've been sent this. I'm going to have that up on the screen, and we're going to break down all three assessments of this unit together. They do include one of our fantastic role plays, which I'm sure you guys are really excited about. So that's for assessment 2. Assessment 1 deals with meeting the client needs through a client brief that you've been given depending on the conference. So it's got like a budget and all the needs and everything in there, and you're going to be opening up more of a communication channel there between yourself and the client based on your I guess understanding of what's needed there. Assessment 2 is all about responding to a complaint, which is part of the role play for a customer who has done a long distance flight. So it's going to be completely ace to do that one. And the third assessment is all about answering some questions based on the learning content in your LMS. So how's the session going to run? So as per usual, I'm going to have the unit breakdown up on the screen so that we can go through the questions together. I've also included in this unit breakdown the actual conference budget breakdown and everything that's been given to you, so the conference brief. So we'll be able to go through that one as well, just to make sure that you guys are understanding everything to be able to form the basis of your email to your client. How can you get the most out of the webinar? I would definitely suggest having had a read through of the assessments first as well, just so you've got that background understanding and you're not seeing it for the first time. I'll definitely also have a look at any of the downloadable content as well as the learning content, because that's going to help you in assessment 3. Unfortunately, I can't give you all the answers to your questions for that written assessment, so that's all up to you guys. But yeah, so definitely have this up on the screen, like your documents up on the screen. If you're old school and want to print everything out, do that, and just take some notes and everything as well. So what happens after the webinar? So after the webinar, hopefully you guys go away and work on your assessment, start submitting them and knock off a whole unit in a day, because these webinars are so amazing and helpful. So that's the dream. So we're definitely hoping to get you guys on track with your training plans and everything else as well, and getting that big green tick on this unit for you guys. So without further ado, let's get started. So as I said before, the unit overview is all about enhancing the customer service experience, and that comes in definitely a few different ways. So whether it's going above and beyond for your customers, depending on their needs, and being able to open those communication strategies, you're definitely going to be more, I guess, using skills to be able to compete with the demand of client demands and everything else as well, and being able to, I guess, give them appropriate recommendations and everything, especially in the first one where you're going to be looking more at recommendations of further information for the conference and everything else as well. And the second one, you've got a role play, which can be done with me over the phone or Skype, up to you. If you're not comfortable doing it with me, or you've got a friend or a family member who is more than happy to help you with your studies, you're more than welcome to film it and everything else as well, and upload that one as an MP4 file straight onto the LMS, or you can upload it to the YouTube as an unlisted video, which is also pretty exciting when you guys do that, because it just gives us a little insight to how you would do it in person, especially because we do like to look at body language where possible, as that's definitely one of the biggest communication ways strategies as well. So there you go, fun piece of information. So the assessments, let's break them down. So I'll just pull up the unit breakdown as per usual. We got our Unit 5, Enhance the Customer Service Experience. Alrighty, so for Assessment 1, this is where we've got our Assessment 1 task brief, which is going to be all about the conference that you guys are planning. So, as you go about your day-to-day work responsibilities, it is important that you and your colleagues have a clear understanding of how to identify the needs and the preferences of your customers. Oh, okay. Cool. So we've got an email here from Alan Wallace about the staff conference. So he is giving some information about what's happening in the branches for Sydney, Brisbane and Melbourne, and that they're planning to do the staff conference for branch management to share ideas and provide leadership and all that good stuff. 50 staff will be attending the event, and you're looking to invite 10 to 15 major suppliers to join as well. So the main goal of this event is to network and share ideas, and they believe a venue with capacity for a sit-down lunch would be best for their needs. So they've attached the conference brief for your review and hoping to give you sufficient information to provide you with suggested venues for your event. So what they've actually given you here is the purpose for the conference, the requirements, speakers, and the budget. The budget is where you really want to look for this. You don't have to change anything. There's no calculations that need to be made or anything. It's just purely for your own, I guess, reference to make sure that your venue fits within that budget. So we've got like your venue hire, so cost per head, they've estimated that it's going to be 10,000. So they've got a 10% contingency there. So either side, like 10%. If it's 10% more or anything like that, that's totally okay. So you really want to make sure that the venue has catering and alcoholic beverages and non-alcoholic beverages supplied as well for the sit-down lunch, and making sure that it stays within that specific estimated total, because they don't want to go over budget, obviously. So you've got all your expenses and everything there, so you have a really good look at what everybody's kind of working with, but that's the information that you really want to go from with your recommendations for venues. So all of this here is going to be giving you like a little bit more of a background thing. So, the specific purpose of it. So basically you're just pulling the requirements out of the email that Alan has sent you and this conference brief as well, just to make sure that whatever you come back with, which is completely up to you, there's no right answer really like of what we're expecting to see. But we will be expecting to see that these requirements are met. So we don't have a list of, specific places that you must choose from. It's all up to you. So it's a fun little activity, I guess, there. For your email, so it's going to be a response to your client, so Alan. You want to, obviously, this should be formatted as a professional email just because he is your client, but you definitely want to have questions in there for him. You really want to make sure that this email, while professional, still has a really great tone of being able to have open communication. So this is why my tip for the very first one is to have open questions. So you have a minimum of 3 questions that you need to ask him within this email for additional information he'll be able to provide you. And what you'd really want to have in an ideal scenario is nothing that's a yes or no answer question, because it's just not going to give you enough detail or anything like that. So my tip here is try for open questions. So we've got how does this look to you? How do you want this to, be communicated? You want how questions. Then we've got when, why, what, who, and where. If you start a question with either of these 5 words, you're going to be able to get a lot more than just a yes or no answer. So yes or no, questions or closed questions, really. It's going to be something that starts with a do or something like that. So, do you need this? Yes, no. You're not going to be able to get more from that. So you could ask, when do you need this by? Why do you need this? And then that will give you a more descriptive answer around what's needed there. So definitely have open questions for your questions to Alan. You're going to recommend 2 venues to the potential client, so Alan, for consideration, and explain how they meet the client's expectations. So they've given you all that they need. So like a sit-down lunch, the capacity for 50 plus people, and having the speakers and everything else. So you definitely want to make sure that there's kind of like a, AV type of technology available there as well for speakers and things. So you want to recommend 2 venues and then just, really justify why you've recommended them and explain how they do it. So what I really like to discuss here is features and benefits. So features and benefits are about what something is offering and how that will benefit your client. So for instance, if the venue is offering AV technology and everything else, that's a feature. The benefit is that they won't have to source out their own or anything else. The venue supplies it, making it easier for them to be able to bring in their speakers and have this conference. So once you've been able to discuss the feature and the benefit, that's where you're really going to be able to, put in that justification. So you want to have 2 venues of your choice. So doing your own external research on venues that will be suitable for your client. My real tip here is to just make sure that it's quite clear. So if you're going to set out your email, just make sure that it's got your questions and everything. So do it chronologically. And then based on the information that you've given, here are my 2 venues. So, you'd have recommendation A, the details of the actual venue, why it meets their client needs. Recommendation B, why it meets their needs and details of the venue. So that will probably be the best way there, just to make sure it's really set out quite clearly. It's neat, it's orderly, and it's professional. So that's the real important thing here with written communication. The third point here is that based on the information provided in the received documents, that's your brief, you're going to anticipate any additional needs that the client may have and provide a minimum of 1 additional suggested product or service for the event. So this is basically where you get to show your client how amazing you are. So you really want to make sure that you're really reading into the brief and everything to see what else that they may need or they may have not thought yet. And it might be a really great additional bonus for them based on the brief that they've given you. So that can literally be anything at all. So it can be an extra service that you think that would be handy, or maybe the venue, one of the venues that you recommended has extra feature or something that would benefit them greatly depending on the conference. So this is completely up to you. Everybody has like their own little take on this one and they'll spin on it. So you just want to anticipate what your client may need or may not know that they want it, and then show them how that venue meets the requirement. So it's just like that added little extra, spark of being awesome. And that is your first assessment done. So to recap this one quickly, it's just an email that you're really sending out. So it's nothing too crazy or anything like that. It's just a little bit of extra research outside of what you've already done based on the email that you've received. So you've received an email from Alan who's detailing what the conference is all about. He's also attached the conference brief, which gives you a little bit of insight to the purpose of it and the requirements that they do have, as well as speakers and a budget. The budget is the most important part because you don't want to have the venue that you're recommending be more than the what they budgeted for that venue hire cost, because it's only for one day, so you don't want to blow the entire budget on a venue. So this is just the first section here where you really want to make sure that you're keeping that in mind when you're doing your outside research. Once you've done that, you're going to create an email response to Alan. Make sure it's professional, it's clearly set out with all of these points in there and that you've given enough information. So for the first point, you're giving a minimum of 3 questions. You can have more, probably just not a whole page because as a client, that would be pretty overwhelming. So maybe 5 maximum. And try for open questions to really make sure that you're having an open communication channel here. So like I said before, you want questions that start with how, when, why, what, who, and where, because that's going to give you much more information than a yes or no question, which would start like do or something like that. Like, do you need this? Blah, blah, blah. So you want to make sure that you're having open questions to make sure that you are being able to have more descriptive answers and give you a better picture of everything. You're also going to recommend 2 venues to the potential client for consideration and explain how they meet your client's expectations. So research on venues, again, like I said, that'll be a personal thing depending on the areas and everything else, and how your chosen venues have met your client's needs. So set this out really clearly in the email. So you'd have recommendation 1, all the details of the venue and how it meets the needs of your client. Recommendation 2, details of the venue, how it meets your client's needs. Once you've done that, your last point here is that you're going to anticipate any additional needs that they may have, depending on what you kind of read, I guess, from the conference brief. Anticipate any additional needs and then let them know what amazing product or service that you've suggested on top of everything else already. So again, completely personal, kind of individual take on this, but you really just want to anticipate a need that your client may have and how the venue or that service or that product meets that. And then sign it off really professionally, make sure the email is like kind regards, blah, blah, and then make sure that's all professionally written and everything. And that's the end of assessment 1. So pretty simple stuff. But what I really look for here is that you've got really great open questions. Your email is professionally written and clearly set out. You don't want a whole bunch of formatting to go awry. Like it's not really nice if you open up an email and you've got your recommendations in there. It's kind of all squished up and jumbled. You want to have everything quite clearly set out. And then we can move on to assessment 2. So assessment 2 is the really fun one where you guys get to do a role play either with a family friend or me. I'm more than happy to do these over the phone and do an observation checklist for you, or we can do it over Skype if you want to have that face-to-face contact. Or if you're a Brisbane student, come into class, I'm more than happy to hang out with you for the day and do this. So what you're going to be doing here is you're going to be discussing a complaint that your customer, John Smith, has come in with and really trying to find a resolution to that. Now, you need to follow with the role play brief, so prior to having the actual conversation with me or your person. So you really want to, I guess, follow that procedure, follow the questioning guidelines and everything else as well, and you'll have information on what kind of resolutions you can offer. So that's really where you want to have a look at this first. So with this one, you'll go the complaint handling procedure and complaint handling processes and everything else, the policies. So these are going to be downloadable PDFs on your LMS, as well as the role play brief. Download these, have a read, and make sure you understand everything, and then you can build your conversation from there. So you'll want to make sure that you come to these role plays prepared with questions that you want to ask about the nature and the cause and details of the complaint that John has, the impact that it's had on the customer. And it may not be like a physical impact or anything. It could just be, you know, an emotional one or a mental impact, especially because the complaint that he has is about his meals and not having received them. So we can imagine the impact on you know, on the customer based on how long that that trip was and everything as well. So make sure that you take that into account. The tone for this role play really should be empathetic, but not sympathetic. You don't want to be pitying your customer or anything. So definitely being able to put yourself in that shoes and understand it, but you're wanting to come to a resolution. So you want to make sure that your tone and your language is still professional, you're empathetic, but yes, you know, you want to fix it, move on, kind of deal like that. So handling this the situation courteously and discreetly. So it's definitely not, you know, something that you would want to, in a real life situation, you wouldn't want to call attention to everybody in store with this, especially in a really busy travel agency. And you still want to definitely develop rapport with your customer. So that's where you identify with your customer and just build that trust and I guess almost a professional friendliness relationship. So you want to make sure that John feels comfortable with you, being able to discuss his complaint, that he feels that his resolution is just, and that he feels like he's been done right by. Amazing. So when you have completed your role play, you will have a customer complaint database, which is an Excel document that you download from the LMS. It has a lot of different lines and everything for it, like it's a whole page thing, but you only need to fill in the one line for the one complaint. So it's basically a complaints register. So if you've worked in retail or hospitality or anything before, you've probably seen something similar to it, or you've done one up yourself, where people will record all the complaints that have happened, you know, based on whatever it is. So with this, you want to make sure that you're completing the entire line. So what the nature of the complaint was, what the resolution was, all of his contact details, which will be on the role play brief as well. And just really making sure that that information is really set out there. Cool. Once you've done that, it's going to be more about discussing the complaint and the resolution with your team members. So a lot of the times in real life situations, you know, if a complaint has been made, it needs to be shared with the team so that we can minimize that complaint happening again. So whether, you know, in retail, if it's, you know, like a mistake of not looking over something properly or not paying attention to the details as much as we should, that's something that will really, I guess, bring to light any other kind of errors that we may make, or it will really be able to minimize that damage that does happen if we're not aware of it. So it can also bring into, you know, like illuminate any kind of training gaps that have happened or anything that we need to really pay attention to. So it's really important to communicate with your team and your workspace what a complaint was, when it was made, all that kind of stuff. So in a report, you're going to be outlining your conversation with John and the steps that you took to resolve his complaint. So again, like you can write this as a memo that you would send out to your team. It doesn't have to be super professional. It can be short and sweet and to the point, just to, you know, make sure that everybody is aware of what has happened and that it can actually happen to anybody. So you want to make sure you outline your conversation with John. So, you know, what was said, what was the gist of the conversation, how did you resolve it? You're going to identify one area for improvement learnt from John's complaint. So what can you learn from the complaint? You know, was there a gap somewhere in somebody's knowledge or an experience? Highlight that in this memo. And then, you know, how it can be applied for other customers, like other clients. So how can you fix it to make sure that it doesn't happen again? You're also going to outline the customer compensation that was provided to John and use your numeracy skills to calculate the cost of those products and or services. So depending on what your resolution is, you just need to show, you know, tell us what the resolution was, like how was he compensated, and just tell us how much it was. So just put in the figure there so that it's really clear for everybody to show that, you know, he was compensated for X amount, or, you know, these services were provided to him which cost X amount, just so that it's really quite clear. For task C, you're going to be designing a really professional letter. So you can have it says, you know, use your organization's letterhead to draft the letter to the supplier. Obviously, if you don't have an organizational letterhead, you can just design one. It doesn't need to be super fancy or anything like that. You can just create like a logo, or you can have, you know, a letterhead with fancy writing and the information that would probably be in a letterhead. So, you know, so company details, like any kind of name maybe for yourself, anything like that. And it's going to be being sent to British Airways and Qantas, which is the 2 airlines that he flew with. So what we want to do here for them is just bring it to attention that his meals were not available to him based on the role play brief that you have read. So you're going to outline the details of the customer complaint to them. And again, making sure that you're remaining professional and courteous to them, because, you know, we want to make sure that everybody's aware of the situation. And then describe the steps that were taken to manage the customer complaint. So it's, again, just kind of like a summary, like whereas in task B, you're sending a memo out to your team. So it's like your really internal little team family. And in task C, it's going to an external company. So it needs to be professional. You want to make sure that it reads as if you're still quite positive about it, but you're just wanting to make sure that everybody's aware of the situation that's happened, so that they can also then maybe implement a process where it doesn't happen in future as well. And then that is the end of assessment 2. So let's recap. So assessment 2, you're first doing the role play with either myself, a family friend, or, you know, a family member. So you're going to be doing that following on from the complaint handling policy and the complaint handling procedures. So you want to make sure that you've read those 2 documents that are available on your LMS. Complete the role play, making sure that your tone, body language, if you're filming or doing this in person, is still very professional and it's very open. You definitely want to make sure that you're coming from this in, like, you can be empathetic, but definitely still be professional. You don't want to be too sympathetic where you're pitying a customer or anything like that, because it's not good. You want to make sure you're developing rapport, so making sure that your tone is also, you know, your tone of your language is making sure that you're being, you're trying to make that bond, so that you're trusting, you're being able to, he can trust you with his complaint, and trust that you're giving him the best compensation that is possible, and making sure that it's all good. Once you've done that, you are going to fill in your customer complaint database, which is just a very small snippet of showing us what's happened, what's taken place. So you want to make sure that each box is detailed. So the nature of the complaint, the customer details, how he was compensated, and what the outcome was of that. For task B, you're setting out a memo. So that's going to be to your team, where you're discussing the complaint, the conversation that you had with John, and the steps taken to resolve his complaint. You're identifying an area of improvement that you learned from John's complaint, which can then be implemented for your other customers. And you're outlining the customer compensation provided to John and telling them exactly how much that will cost. So really breaking it down if you've offered more than one service or product, but just make sure you've got that numerical amount in there as well. For task C, you are sending out a very professional letter to British Airways and Qantas to make sure that they are understanding of what the customer complaint was and how that was resolved. Again, this needs to be quite professional. You want to keep it to the point, so no 2-page letters or anything like that. You just want to make sure that it's short and sweet, but it's very professional communication to an external company. And that is it. For assessment 3, this assessment is just going to be like short answers to your written questions. All of these will either be common knowledge, external research, or working through your LMS learning content as well. So we really just want to make sure that you've demonstrated, your knowledge and everything based on the 2 assessments that you've completed, plus any research and learning that you've done. So we've got a few questions here. So we're listing and describing 2 principles and benefits of enhanced customer service experiences and positive communication. So here you just want to describe 2 principles that you have researched or have learnt about, and what the benefits of those are in enhancing a customer service experience and creating positive communication. For question B, you're describing 2 techniques where you can anticipate customer preferences, needs, and expectations throughout the service experience. So basically it's asking you, while you're discussing things with a client or you're working with a client, what kind of 2 techniques can you then anticipate customer preferences or needs or expectations? So it can be body language or different kind of communication, but just 2 techniques where you can anticipate those. For question C, you're describing 2 conflict resolution techniques. So this will be in your learning content as well. So just listing and describing 2 resolution techniques. When it does say describe, I really want you guys to give me a solid description of it. So not just a one-liner or something like that. Go into detail of how these work. So you really want to like make sure that I'm understanding, as if I wasn't aware of what these conflict techniques were, how they work in the workspace. For question D, you're explaining the value of staff and customer feedback in enhancing service delivery. For this question, it can be also more of your own experiences and everything else. So why do you think that there's value in having a staff and customer feedback? It could be surveys or just forms or something like that. It can be anything at all where you'll be getting feedback, so even verbal. So why does that have value? For question E, describe the professional service standards expected of service industry personnel. So what are the standards that people are needing to be held to within an organization? So you really want to, I guess, do some little bit of research on that as well. There might be standards online that or in your learning content that you can discuss. For question F, you're explaining 2 attitudes and attributes expected by the service industries to work with customers. So basically, this one's asking you for 2 attitudes and 2 attributes of a person who is working with customers. What do they need to possess to be able to work successfully with customers? For G, you're describing 2 different customer service needs and expectations. So what kind of customer service needs and expectations could there be in the workplace? And just describe 2 of them. Describe 2 types of customer loyalty programs. You can use examples here of things that you may be a part of in real life or that you've heard of or come across. So I love hearing about specific examples of businesses that you may have come across or have been a part of, and how that really works. So especially if you're a customer and you've been a part of it, why did that work to bring you in? How did that make sure that you were loyal to that business? So I'd really be interested to see what you come up with for those. For question I, you're outlining 4 essential features and usage of a customer database. So again, this will be in your learning content, or you can look online at different customer database information and just outline 4 essential features and usage of that. What kind of things do you want to have in a customer database, and how would that work for you? So how would that benefit the company? For question J, how do organizations communicate designated response times for providing service and resolving complaints? So with this one, a really great example actually is online. A lot of businesses and everything, if you want to do like a contact us or something, they may have a complaints form or even just a very general contact, I guess, landing page. And a lot of the time they have information, even a disclaimer at the top of the page or at the bottom or after you've submitted it, to tell you what the actual response time is. So sometimes it can be something like, we'll get back to you within 1 to 2 business days. Complaints will be, answered or handled within 3 business days or something like that. So yeah, online is a really great example of that. You can even include little screenshots if you want, if you've seen something like that online, or if you know of any other ways that they've done it. I would love to hear about that as well. And for question K, which is our lucky last one, why is it important for customer service staff to understand promotional services offered by the organization? So this question is basically asking you, why does a customer service person or a staff member, why do they need to understand what promotional service is being offered by the organization? What benefit does that have to a client and to the organization as well as a bigger picture? And that is the end of this unit. So unit 5, done and dusted. So assessment 3, again, is just you got your questions A to K, which is just going to be working through your learning content and external research, as well as your own experiences and background knowledge to answer those ones. These are all short answer questions, so I'm not expecting big paragraphs or anything about them. But when it says describe, definitely go into detail and describe them for me. And that is it. So from here, we've done a recap. So where to from here? So from here, hopefully you've got quite a lot of notes. You've paused me where you need to, or replayed little sections of this where you need to as well to get that information. From here, I would love to see your completed assessments and do some role plays with you guys and get all of that marked off for you. And hopefully you guys have got a lot more confidence going into it from here. Any questions or concerns that you do have, feel free to contact me. I've got my mobile on the screen as well, so feel free to call or text me whenever you need to, or you can call the landline if you haven't been able to get through to me, or if you'd like to speak to somebody on that team. You can also email me, or if I'm not available, you can email the student support guys as well. They're amazing. It's just that our team of mentors as well, and they'll always be happy to help where they can. So support available to you is myself. You've got the rest of the mental team as well. You've got the unit breakdown, the webinar, and you can always get in contact with me Monday to Friday if you have any questions or anything like that. I'm always happy to do coaching calls with you guys and answer any other questions that you have. And what's next? So what's next is, well, hopefully you'll be working on those assessments as well. And if you have any drafts or anything, feel free to upload that to the LMS for marking. Just let me know. Shoot me a text or an email. Just say, hey, I've just put a draft up there. More than happy to mark that off for you and send it back so that you guys can action any feedback that may have been given. And that is it. So thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you next time. Bye-bye.